I want to make this video because I constantly get comments on my pedophile human rights activists, our actual position video, and I'm kind of tired of constantly answering the same question. I'm also making this as a bit of an FAQ companion video to my friend Varmint Coyote's video called Can You Sympathize? Pedophilia not equal to child molester. Links down in the underbar, by the way, to that. And speaking of links, if you want to know where half or all of my information is coming from, click on my little channel page here and go to my nice, neatly organized playlist called Pedophilia Research. It's a bit long, but I've included my own video series that took many months to complete and is still not necessarily what I would consider complete to my liking, but it's complete enough. It makes its point, even if some people are still not wanting to understand this situation here. And that's really what a lot of this is about, is understanding on many levels. I'm going to take a slightly different approach than my cohort Varmint Coyote here, and I'm going to address some of the most frequently asked questions and trying to condense as much of my research information into what I hope to be a short video here for people who are curious as to why anybody would take up this topic at all. And it is one that's worth taking up, but I'll get to that. So, FAQ question 1. Are you a pedophile? Speaking to the author here. No, I'm not. But I'm also not gay. I'm also not transgendered. I'm also not bisexual. I'm not asexual. You name the things that I've worked for. Women's rights. I'm not a woman, at least not last time I checked. This idea that one has to be what they are talking about is meaningless. It's at best it's just from ignorance. At worst, it's an ad hominem attack to try to defame me, which will somehow then by proxy defame all of the information I've ever presented, except for, oh wait, that's right, it doesn't. Because let's say for the sake of argument I was a pedophile, and I'm the father of a child here, and unless you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, or any proof, that I am harming my child or anybody else's child, which hasn't been proved because there's nothing to prove there, then what does it matter if I am or I am not? So question 2 would probably be, well then, why be so public about this? Why take this on? Well, because for one, this is human rights issue. We're taking away people's human rights because of thought crimes, because of preconceived notions, and because of pre-crime, which is something that I was going to tackle in a video based off of an article that I've yet to present from the New Yorker about how we are creating programs to basically put people in jail until they admit to a future crime they have yet to commit. This isn't progress, people. This doesn't do anything. But I would equally fire back at the idea of, well, you want to take away the rights, human rights of a sex offender because you consider all sex offenders to be pedophiles, which they are not, and I'll get to that in a moment here. But what of the gentleman whose only crime that turned him into a sex offender in some states for life was he got drunk and he decided to pee outside of a bathroom within 300 yards of a closed school or a police station? Is he a danger, a threat to society, need to have his human rights taken away? What about the woman who is a prostitute, which can also get you turned into a sex offender? Does she deserve to have her human rights taken away? Oh, that's right, I forgot. She's a slut, so yes, of course. That way she can never give or revoke consent, and therefore she can never be raped, because that's how society works, right? What about the 17-year-old boy? Because typically it's boys who get in trouble in this situation, not the girls, which is a whole nother subject entirely. whose only crime is having sexual relations with his 17-year-old girlfriend. Is he a threat to children? Is he a threat to society? Does he deserve to have his human rights taken away? I'm asking you. I'm asking you to ask this question because the bulk of sex offenders are people who've never touched a child, some of whom have touched adults in inappropriate fashions and deserve punishment for their crime, but they're having their human rights revoked as if they were pedophiles and as if they presented a clear and present danger, which even if they were pedophiles, that being born a pedophile does not an offender make, which is part of the entire reason for doing any of this. I've risked possibly getting future employment in certain ways, because if people find these videos, I could be in trouble, even though I can prove everything that I've been talking about through actual science and actual studies and people who've actually looked into these situations here. I've lost a relationship. I've lost some friends who can't believe that I would ever dare talk about this because they conflate what I'm doing with trying to legalize child molestation and adult child sexual relations. Which brings me to my next FAQ. Why are you doing this? Why are you spitting in the faces of victims? Why are you trying to take away victims' rights? Why are you trying to legalize adult-child relations? Well, first off, I'm not, nor have I ever. Second off, with the way that we have a one-size-fits-all trauma model in terms of treating people who have had experiences, whether traumatic or not, we're actually harming oftentimes a lot of these victims by misdiagnosing their situation and actually forcing into their heads things like shame and other things that are actually detrimental to their actual mental health care and healing from this very terrible crime when it's committed. Nor too have I ever said, or would I ever say, that I want legalization of adult-child sexual relations or legal child rape. These things are disgusting. They are crimes. I absolutely believe in prosecution and punishment for people who act out. But I don't believe in painting an entire populace with a broad brush and considering that a solution, because we have a lot of collateral damage that oftentimes people don't care about, because they only care that the one pedophile that they disagree with is being punished. Meanwhile, well, say 5 17-year-olds whose only crime was having sexual relations with their teenage girlfriend get looped in, grouped into that same group and treated just the same and spit on just the same. Now, here's a big one. What is a pedophile? Well, as stipulated in my series, this seems to be an emergent sexuality, something that the DSM-5, which I've heard is due out this year, might actually be addressing, which will further break the conflation between not just pedophile and child molester, but the conflation between pedophile and homosexual, by creating it into what it seems to be, a sexuality. It can be hard to treat, but this is an important distinction on many levels. If it was simply a mental illness, then certain treatments could be administered and pedophiles could be absolutely cured. The problem is, for those who are an exclusive pedophile, and I'll get to the difference in a moment here, they're finding that shock treatment's not working. Castration works on some levels, but isn't 100% in chemical castration, or in some cases, as people are calling for, physical castration, because as we all are being led to believe, this is a male-only crime, which is another underlying problem with this entire situation here. Because and it means that this presents a very dynamic issue here. But being that it's a sexuality, even though we cannot allow these people to act on their sexuality, obviously, because they can and will damage the people that they would want to be with, Being that it's a sexuality shows that there is no absolute guarantee of offense. Because you heterosexuals out there, do you always go for, or do you force yourself on or rape everybody you are sexually attracted to? I dare say if you're a normal male, you probably have several female friends who you'd love to bone, but you're okay with being friends with, and you maintain that friendship, and you don't rape them. Just because this is a divergent sexuality doesn't mean that it doesn't play by the same rules that any other sexuality plays by, even if what they're attracted to might make us uncomfortable. Now, what is going to affect recidivism, and what is going to affect or more or less guarantee an actual offense? Well, simply being born a pedophile is not going to do it. Where you're typically going to find, especially in that 5% that I've mentioned in other videos, again, links to my statistics are down in the underbar here, is pedophilia being impacted by antisocial personality disorder and a compulsivity disorder, or both. When you have something like that, that's when you're going to get people who are going to rationalize what they are doing, or people who are not going to be empathetic to their victims, and therefore not control themselves because they see nothing wrong with what they are doing, or they just don't care. But this isn't the entire populace of pedophilia. This is, a small fraction who just are not rehabilitatable and should spend their life behind bars, because it's more expensive to kill people than to keep them alive and behind bars for life. So I would actually be more in favor with just keeping them behind bars for life rather than executing them, because how are we any better if we treat these people like barbarians? How are we any different than them? Now, lastly, I guess I want to leave off with two little nuggets here. We have very little numbers or information on female pedophiles, and yes, they do exist. And yet we're more comfortable with leaving kids with a random woman than we would be with a random man, because we have the perception that men are the aggressors always, and that if a female pedophile exists, she must have been so because of a male presence, despite the fact that in over 75% of cases of female pedophilia, no man was in the picture or even anywhere near the person when the person was doing their work. The other thing that I want to leave people with is shoot, I forgot the last bit. Dadgummit. And in a way, we act as if we don't care about female pedophile victims. We only care about the male ones, and even that, we only really care the most when it happens to little girls, because we're more protective of girls than we are of boys. And so we perpetuate this idea that women cannot be the aggressors. They can't hit or abuse, they can't rape, they can't molest, they can't do anything. When in fact, they do it almost at the same rate or the same numbers as the men. And yet we're willing to sweep that under the rug and not care about that and focus on the men. And that's hurtful. That's hurtful towards men, because then we're the ones who get looked at with funny looks as if we are a child molester until proven otherwise, and it's disgusting. Yes. The last little thing I want to talk about is people constantly say either, well, one, some of them say that they hope my child gets raped, or they ask, how would I feel if my child did get raped? Well, I can't say that I would enjoy the experience here, but you know what I would do? Knowing what I know and arming myself with knowledge, I would get him the best care and focus on his recovery, rather than focusing on vengeance. I wouldn't like that somebody had hurt my child in that deep of a way, but you know what? I would just make sure of what type of pedophile they are, and if they need to stay behind bars, I would work to stay behind bars, but my focus would be on my son, not on an eye for an eye or some sort of bullcrap vengeance, barbaric idealism like that, because that's not going to help my son. My son is the most important thing in this. And I would hope he never, ever experiences something like that. And he's gotten on for 11 years without experiencing it. So far, so good.